Zach Laws, Luca Giliberti, thank you for joining me. We are going to be talking about the Best Comedy Guest Actor and Best Comedy Guest Actress races at the 2019 Emmys, with nominations coming up very soon. So, for Best Comedy Actor, two of the top three contenders are Bob Newhart for The Big Bang Theory and Peter MacNicol for Veep. We all have MacNicol in our predictions. None of us have Bob Newhart. They both were nominated back in 2016 and have not been nominated since, and they are now competing for the final seasons of their shows. Of course, MacNicol's nomination was rescinded, but why are we so confident in MacNicol but not Newhart? Luca.
Well,
no, Luca, you go ahead.
Thank you. Well, I think Veep will perform better overall, and I think sometimes when a show is much stronger across the board, it translates in these guest categories. And I just feel like the fact that his nomination was taken away, I think, as you said, in 2016 will help him in this case. And I just feel like Veep will overperform in general because it is the final season. Again, we also have the final season of The Big Bang Theory, but The Big Bang Theory hasn't been a factor at the Emmys in a few years now. And as we said, Bob Newhart hasn't been nominated, I think, since 2016. And he also wasn't nominated last year. And I think Gold Derby was predicting him. I think he was in like the 6th position. But again, he's Bob Newhart. He could get in on name check alone. And if people are sentimental about The Big Bang Theory ending, there's a very good chance that he could get in. But with all these Saturday Night Live people that we'll talk about in a second, it's just very difficult to predict someone like Bob Newhart getting in my opinion, because Saturday Night Live has kind of dominated these guest categories in the last few years. But if there's one thing the last few years have told us, is that this category is very difficult to predict and anything can happen.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm confident in MacNicol necessarily, so much as it's like Veep has done very well in this category in the last few years, including that rescinded nomination for him a little while back, but also people like Martin Mull have gotten in.
All right. Oh, wow. I just don't understand how he got his nomination rescinded, and that didn't result in an outpouring of sympathy votes the next year once he was in contention again. But that year he did have very little material. It's possible that voters just didn't see him or forgot that he was in it. This year he does have a few episodes when he goes off on these tirades, and it's pretty good material, I'd say. In the case of Newhart, I find that I don't know what's going on with final seasons at the Emmys in recent years. For a while there, it seemed like final seasons were a chance for voters to kind of nominate everyone that they had nominated up to that point, and maybe throw some nominations to people who they had overlooked over the years. Whereas more recently, I feel like we keep seeing these final seasons not gain additional nominations and even randomly lose nominations that they've been getting consistently all the way through. So in general, I'd say that I'm trying just to treat final seasons as just like any other season.
Yeah. And I think the problem with a show like The Big Bang Theory is that we don't really know if Emmy voters still watch it or if they care about it. I mean, if we see Jim Parsons show up, then it'll be a sign that they did watch it and care about it. Fine, I'll let you speak. Do you want to go ahead?
It sounds like you were finishing my thought. Yeah, I mean, I think that, you hear people talk about The Big Bang Theory more this go round just because it has ended. And so maybe there are going to be a few people who would check off a name like a Bob Newhart or Jim Parsons, like you were saying. Mm-hmm. But I don't think that that's a safe bet. I mean, final seasons don't count for that much sometimes with the Emmys, especially if it's a show that's kind of fallen off their radar. Mm-hmm. And like Luca was alluding to earlier as well, I mean, you might as well call this category Best Guest Actor in an episode of Saturday Night Live, because you could very easily fill the category with all these men. I don't know if they're going to cancel each other out or if they're just going to dominate the category and make it harder for somebody like a Bob Newhart or other contenders to get in.
Do you remember how many SNL guys are on the ballot?
I
think it's like more than 6.
It's way too many. You should never submit more people than the category. I mean, more than 6 actors, because the category is, is only supposed to consist. Same with Will and Grace. I mean, they had that problem last year. Will and Grace, Saturday Night Live doesn't have the problem Will and Grace has, which is that it doesn't get any actors in at all, because I think we're all confident that Saturday Night Live will have, at least 2 to 3 contenders here. It's crazy.
I'm going down the list right now, and you have people like John Mulaney, Adam Sandler, Matt Damon, who's really only on there because of like one sketch that he did. Kavanaugh.
He did actually host.
He did. Yeah, I forgot. Anyway, well,
and
we know why he's on the ballot.
Kavanaugh, in his little ballot description, they just mentioned that he hosted and he did all these other things. I believe.
Yes.
All right, so Matt Damon's on there, Seth Meyers, Robert De Niro, who did not host, I don't believe.
Did not.
Adam Driver, so Paul Rudd, Idris Elba, Jason Momoa, Don Cheadle, Ben Stiller. Did I leave? I think that's about it, but it's...
they submitted everyone but Steve Carell.
Yeah.
It'll depend on how much, who NBC campaigns as well. I mean, last year Tiffany Haddish won without them campaigning her properly, I believe. So that might not always matter.
She submitted ahead of their submissions, which is what it was.
Yes, but
the one that they're actually campaigning the most is Adam Sandler. The SNL DVD that all the voters got always has one episode on it, and this year it's his episode, and his is the one that they're submitting and directing and other categories. So that's why I have him in. I feel like the tribute that he did also got some buzz. I've got John Mulaney because I think that people just loved his hosting, and I think he's actually going to win. And then I've got Matt Damon because of, the viral skits that he did with as Brett Kavanaugh. Although him I have in 6th place. I also feel like Matt Damon does not have the most goodwill in recent years.
But do you think if we have like 3 to 4 actors that they don't split the vote like last year, because they that's what paved the way for Matt Williams to win for Atlanta? So I'm curious to see if someone like Peter McNichol could win because of a Saturday Night Live vote split and because of the strength of Veep overall. But that depends on how many Saturday Night Live actors get in.
I mean, it's funny because like vote splitting doesn't seem to affect Saturday Night Live actors, because people like Dave Chappelle have won with 3 competitors. Melissa McCarthy, I mean, it doesn't seem to really affect them. I think that what's more likely to happen is it could come down to a race between John Mulaney and Adam Sandler, just for the reasons that Riley was listing. I mean, if it's the episode that they're promoting the most, and it makes sense because I mean he's an SNL alum, and this is the first time that he's ever come back to host, and it was a good episode. It was one of their standouts from the season, so it makes sense that they would be pushing that one. I think that if there's going to be a split, it would be between those two, which could maybe cause somebody like a Peter McNichol to win. But I also am interested to wonder about like who outside of Saturday Night Live could get into this category if we're just like underestimating some other contenders.
Yeah. So I have Luke Kirby for The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. It's a show that'll perform well in its 2nd season. I think we've seen it a lot where a show blows up in the 1st season, but blows up even more in the 2nd one. And it usually, helps actors in the guest category. So I definitely have him in. And then in 6th position, I currently have Adam Scott for The Good Place, which I don't feel confident about, but Adam Scott is currently on Big Little Lies, and he's giving a very good performance on that. He's also on the ballot for Drama Guest Actor for The Twilight Zone, so there seems to be visibility for him. And I do think The Good Place will perform well this year. And they got in Maya Rudolph and guest actress last year, comedy guest actress. So it's something that I think could happen. I don't feel, confident about it, but sometimes you have to go out on a limb.
And he is playing like kind of a mustache twirling villain, is he not?
Yeah.
And why has he not gotten in previous years?
That's very...
Well, the show has been, performing steadily better. I mean, it didn't get any nominations for the first year, and it only got 2 last year. And, if the show overperforms, then he could be one of those people who benefit from it. But you're right. I mean, it is a risky proposition. I actually put in Danny DeVito from the Kaminsky Method because he's a previous Emmy winner for Taxi. He's a Hollywood favorite, and he's in a very memorable episode. So I could see them. I could see a lot of the old timers of the TV Academy who are going to be voting for Kaminsky Method in multiple categories, voting for him as well.
Yeah, I wonder how much the Kaminsky Method is going to be like Grace and Frankie. It's a very easy comparison. And that show, it always has these guest stars and even these supporting actors who are big names. And for some reason, none of them can get through. So I'm a little hesitant to put in, people like Anne Margaret or Danny DeVito for the Kaminsky Method, as showy as his role is and as early as it is in the season. I've got Lin-Manuel Miranda for whatever he's eligible for this year, because that's what he seems to get in for these days.
Brooklyn.
And then I feel very confident in Luke Kirby, just because he's been recurring for the last 2 seasons now on The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. So I feel like he is one of those pseudo supporting players that they just love to nominate here.
Yeah, and for Lin-Manuel Miranda, it's actually it helps that Sterling K. Brown got nominated for Brooklyn Nine-Nine last year, and I think he's an easy nomination here as well. And as you said, he gets in every single time he's on the ballot, so it's pretty much a safe bet.
I would also not be surprised to see Rufus Sewell for The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, but I have not gotten that far in the season myself. Do you have any thoughts about him?
It could happen. I'm looking through all these different people, and it seems to be like you've also got somebody. I'm looking for like potential surprises. A person like a Stephen Merchant for The Good Place, who's ranked way down in our odds. Maybe RuPaul Charles for Grace and Frankie. Speaking of Grace and Frankie, he's been Emmy winning for the past 3 years now, so maybe that'll help his chances here. There's just what about we mentioned Will and Grace earlier. How about somebody like David Schwimmer, who has one of those semi-recurring roles on there? Do you think there's any chance, or is Will and Grace just sort of done?
Yeah, it's not only done, but it just has too many actors on the ballot. It's, as I said, it's not something that'll hurt Saturday Night Live, but Will and Grace isn't strong enough to submit more actors than our spots. And, I think we have the same problem last year. I mean, we also have Matt Bomer on the ballot for Will and Grace. We have so many guest actors. I just think they need to reduce the number of submissions and just focus on 2 to 3 people and then really campaign. I mean, last year they did get in Molly Shannon for Best Actress, but that might have just been luck or, the category, but it's too difficult, I think.
We also have John Mulaney for Documentary Now, and we have Michael Keaton and Owen Wilson for that show as well. I could see Johnny Galecki getting in for The Conners. He missed last year for Roseanne, but I don't know, maybe the competition is different this year. Richard E. Grant for A Series of Unfortunate Events. I like that Broad City finally figured out that they could submit Hannibal Buress in guest, and he's been on the show the whole time, so he could be one of those couldn't get nominated in supporting but gets in for guest. Who I actually am closest to slotting into my predictions is Dan Bacadal for Veep. He's got a very showy character, and it's very broadly comedic, and I think people remember who he is, and he's been on the show for kind of the whole time.
Yeah,
that could happen. I mean, he's in that same kind of mold as somebody like a Matt Walsh, for instance, who was on the show for ever and ever and ever and finally got nominated in the whatever season it was. My brain is not going to be that lucid today. But if somebody like him could definitely get in, especially since this is the last season, and they might want to just get around to nominating all the people who they haven't done yet.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we'll switch over to comedy guest actress, where here we have the same problem. We've got tons of people from SNL, but unlike their male counterparts, just kind of going through, IMDb ratings, AV Club ratings, or whatever other responses I could find, I found that the guest actresses this season were actually not as well received.
Yeah.
So they have some big names in Sandra Oh and Rachel Brosnahan, who could very well win other Emmys. And then there's Emma Thompson, who seems to get in for the most random programs. But I could also see a situation in which none of them get in.
Oh, wow.
And also Aquafina, she got some buzz early in the season. How do you guys feel about these SNL actresses? And more specifically, why is Sandra Oh so far ahead of Rachel Brosnahan?
Killing
Because of
Eve.
Killing Eve, yeah. I was
It's just
Yeah, but
Killing Eve
Mrs.
stands.
Maisel. Are
but
you
she,
saying just our prediction center is flooded with Killing Eve stands? Is that
No, I think what it is that
no,
people are banking on her winning for Killing Eve, and so they're thinking that that's going to spill over into her possibly winning for Saturday Night Live. I think that's all it is, really. And
yes.
I don't think that if it is going to be a Saturday Night Live lady, I don't expect it to be her. I would bank on either Rachel Brosnahan, because she's probably not going to win actress this year over Julia Louis-Dreyfus, or even Emma Thompson, like you said, just because she closed out the season and she is very popular. But yeah, I think it has to do with people expecting Sandra Oh to win multiple Emmys as opposed to just one.
Yeah. I don't even think most people probably think she's going to win. I just think people are very confident in predicting her for a nomination just because of all the hype she's getting for Killing Eve, and she'll probably win a drama actress this year. I mean, it's a very easy path for her. But I actually I don't feel confident about any of the SNL ladies, but I do have Emma Thompson and Aquafina in, and don't have Rachel Brosnahan in, just because Emma Thompson's getting a lot of buzz right now because of her movie Late Night as well, and sometimes external buzz can help someone in these categories. And Aquafina is a no guts, no glory prediction. I just think she's been gaining momentum these last few years with Crazy Rich Asians. She'll be in The Farewell this year. It's just something that, could happen at the Emmys. Even though Rachel Brosnahan, she won last year, she'll get nominated again this year. She could easily get in, and then she'll face her, or might face her Maisel co-star Jane Lynch, who's currently in first place in the prediction center.
Yeah, I think she's definitely getting in, Jane Lynch. It's hard to say if she'll win just because she couldn't last year, and it seemed winnable for her. After her, I've got Maya Rudolph for The Good Place. And in third place, I actually have, for Will and Grace, Molly Shannon. But it seems like everyone has dropped her this time. I just figured that, she got in last year. So
it's definitely a possibility. Absolutely.
How about like Cate Blanchett in Documentary Now? I feel like, obviously Documentary Now is not the most viewed show on television, but I think that with how all these movie stars, like we mentioned Michael Keaton earlier, and Owen Wilson in the actor category, somebody like Cate Blanchett, I could see them checking off just on name recognition alone. And she is very, very funny in the episode as well. I think that she's in one of their standouts from this season. So I kind of wonder if she could be a breakthrough acting contender for that show.
I think she absolutely can, because I don't watch Documentary Now, and even people were raving about her performance in it, and she has the name and she has the performance, and sometimes that can really get someone into these guest categories. Documentary Now is not a show that'll probably perform well overall, but sometimes we have actors from shows that don't perform well, land a spot in these categories. I think she's a very safe, well, not a safe bet, but she'll probably get in.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we do occasionally have somebody like Steve Buscemi who gets in for Portlandia in these sketch shows that are not SNL. But I just don't think anybody has seen Documentary Now, and I think that name recognition can carry you some of the way, but I feel like there needs to be some awareness of what you actually did, and I'm not sure that there is that for Cate Blanchett.
True. So what do you guys think about Christine Baranski in The Big Bang Theory, and Regina King, who's also contending for The Big Bang Theory, who is an Emmy darling and wins for pretty much everything she's nominated for, and gets in for almost everything she's nominated for, except for The Leftovers.
And a recent Oscar nominee too. Don't forget, Oscar winner.
Oscar
Excuse
winner
me.
For Giliberti.
I told you my brain wasn't working today. I don't know. I mean, I think that again, The Big Bang Theory is just kind of. I don't know how deep the support is going to be for this last season, because it feels like it ended a long time ago, and now that it is finally being talked about again, I don't know. It kind of, to compare it to another Christine Baranski show, The Good Wife, when that went off the air, the nominations were just nowhere to be found. So I don't know. I can see Christine Baranski getting in, or even Regina King, but I don't see both of them getting in.
No.
One or the other.
I think Christine Baranski was snubbed last year, wasn't she? Because
she's been snubbed for a while now.
Yeah, so that's worrisome. So that's why I don't have her in my lineup, and I don't think The Good Fight will really give her that much momentum either, since we don't really know if voters watch CBS All Access. So I don't have either Regina King. I don't have both in. But Regina King could just pop up. It wouldn't surprise me at all. Bet against her at your own peril, because she gets in every single time.
It would be kind of like how Laurie Metcalf was snubbed for like the first 6 seasons of The Big Bang Theory. And then suddenly when she has Getting On and when she has Horace and Pete, then people wake up and nominate her that one time. I think Regina King, she's been on the show in the past, but maybe this year she has enough goodwill within the industry that she can randomly pop in here. As for Christine Baranski, I think that she's kind of in a Becky Ann Baker position for, she was nominated a couple years ago for the final season of Girls exclusively, even though she had been on the show, the whole time. I think that Christine Baranski has a lot of buzz for her performance this season individually, and maybe more so than the past few. That's why I've got her in.
Yes.
I don't have Wanda Sykes, who has kind of taken her position in the category the last couple of years, just because I've made it my mission to not predict Blackish for anything this year.
I have it falling out of just about everywhere as well.
Yeah,
but I wouldn't count. I wouldn't count against her, necessarily. I think she's hovering in a 10, but I don't know if she'll make it into the 6th spot this year, just because Blackish is not as talked about, if at all, this season.
Yeah, and if Blackish were actually talked about and had a lot of buzz, I would put in Octavia Spencer for Blackish. But as you said, I don't think Blackish is going to get any. Well, it'll probably get a few nominations, but I don't have it getting into the main categories. I don't even have Anthony Anderson returning, nor Tracy Ellis Ross. So I don't think Wanda Sykes will break into this category, and it's incredibly stacked. I think it's more stacked than it has been in the last few years, and I don't know. She's gotten nominated twice for Blackish now, and I think this will be the year that she falls out.
All right, so other contenders include Anne Margaret for The Kaminsky Method, Sally Phillips for Veep, Fiona Shaw and Kristen Scott Thomas for Fleabag, Chloe Sevigny for Russian Doll. Who else we have? We've got Busy Phillips for Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. I could see one for her where, she's just been around for a while. It's the final season. Let's throw her one. Same with Susie Essman for Broad City. So yeah, there's quite a lot going on here.
A lot going on. And
maybe
I think
they go for Ann Dowd. Maybe they go for Natasha Lyonne.
Ann Dowd, right?
Yeah.
She's on The Handmaid's Tale right now, so you never. I think Maya Rudolph is someone that we could be underestimating in terms of. I know we're talking about nominations, but in terms of winning, that's someone I think we could be underestimating. I have Jane Lynch in #1 just because I think she was probably in second after Tiffany Haddish last year, and because Maisel, will perform very well for its second season. But Maya Rudolph is someone who's been building up goodwill throughout the last few years. She hasn't gotten nominated for that much and hasn't won that much, which I just found out. So I think sometimes when there's a lot of goodwill for someone, these are the perfect categories for someone like that to prevail.
Yeah, and I mean, Jane Lynch is nothing if not taken care of by the Emmys. She's got more than I can count at the moment, but Maya Rudolph, it would be nice to. I think there's a lot of goodwill towards her, like you say, and I could easily see her winning, especially if The Good Place has a better overall tally this year than it has previously.
Yeah.
I mean, 3 nominations will be better than anything they've had previously, but if we're predicting it to get into multiple main categories, I could see her being like a prize to give to this season.
Yeah, and I think she was the big surprise last year. I think that's one of the reasons why we're predicting The Good Place to, perform very well this year. I mean, Ted Danson also got him, but I think her guest nomination is what sort of told me that the show will probably perform better this year, next to all of its guild support and everything else that's working in its favor.
Yep, she's winning this year. She's just at that place in her career. Used to be about the performance, but then the Emmys changed the whole voting system, so now it's just about who's got goodwill, who's a character actor at this point in their career, etc.
And she's doing Press for Forever as well, which she'll be contending for in the comedy actress category. So it doesn't hurt someone when they have 2 projects that they're in the running for, or could be in the running for.
All right, let's all go update our predictions.
Yeah.